Shalom everybody, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. We're up to page 189 of volume 2 of Rabbi Victor Miller's New Translation and Commentary of Duties of the Mind. And we are in Shah HaBekina, the Gate of Examining, and we're looking at the life-enabling faculties. And this is part 4 of chapter 5. And so I guess what we're going to be looking at here is everything that Hashem has given you to participate in life. And I realize that some people have given more than others, and there's reasons for that, reasons that we don't often know. But nonetheless, we accept whatever we get in terms of what faculties that we have as a baseline. Can we see? Can we hear? Can we think? Can we walk? Can we talk? Can we manipulate things with our hands? Do we even have hands? Do we even have legs? Maybe, there's an organ that you've got that's not the best. Maybe it's through your own fault. Maybe it's just genetic. But nonetheless, we are given an array of life-enabling faculties. And we need to switch on about that. And we need to be sensitive. And we need to look at that and examine that. And we need that examination to build gratitude. The author of the Kavod Halavot is urging each person to consider all the details of the Kestei Hashem, that is the kindness of Hashem, in the creation of the human body. Before returning to the text, let us consider at greater length some of life's enabling faculties that he has mentioned. So this is Rabbi Victor Miller's commentary here, just sort of priming the reader up before they get back into the Kavod Halavot. One of the most remarkable things about the human body is that it must be maintained at a constant internal temperature. It must be maintained at a constant internal temperature. Whether it's summer or winter, the body cannot be allowed to cool off or to heat up. This precise regulation of the temperature doesn't happen by itself. There is a thermostat in the brain which is constantly adjusting the heat of the body. The heat is essential to the function of the body and all its internal processes. For example, the water must be heated in order to cook meat. Similarly, the chemical reactions in the living body require the right level of heat in order to take place. So just like we need food to get to a certain temperature to cook food, the body has to be at a certain temperature for it to function correctly. If the body temperature would rise above normal, the heat would damage the delicate body's machinery, the parts of which may not be bigger than a microscopic cell. How does the body prevent its temperature from rising above a tolerable degree when the outside temperature is hot? One of the things the body does is to cause the skin to perspire. That is, some of the water that exists in the bloodstream is rerouted to the skin and comes out of the pores in the form of sweat. The evaporation of the sweat uses heat which is drawn from the skin, thereby cooling the body. Perspiration in summertime is a means of keeping the body cool inside. In wintertime, we don't perspire much because we don't want to get rid of the heat. We want to maintain the heat that's inside the body. A person who is very cold shivers, and that vibration generates heat, which brings the body temperature back up. I don't think I read that right. A person who is very cold shivers, there you go, and the vibration generates heat which brings the body temperature back up. So a person who's, they feel the cold more than others, their body will vibrate, which brings their temperature back. It is also remarkable that the body is able to perform its chemical reactions with only a small amount of heat. In comparison to cook meat, water, it has to be brought to a boil. Clearly, such a high temperature would destroy everything in the body, and so the body is able, with only a little bit of heat, to achieve changes that would need very high temperatures outside. How can that be done? The answer is that the body makes use of enzymes. The body makes use of enzymes. These are complex substances that help the small amount of heat in the body accomplish what needs to be done. Of course, the author of Kavod Halavot didn't know about enzymes and their miraculous effect. The enzymes replace the need for a constant boiling pot on the fire inside of the body to process all the food we consume and change them into different materials that the body needs. We understand how important it is for the body to maintain a constant temperature. If the temperature varies a little, either up or down, the body will cease to function. And therefore we have to thank Hashem for the heat that enables our bodies to function as they are meant to. Now I'll ask you the question, you can put it in the comments, you can put your response in the comments. Have you ever thanked Hashem for your body temperature? I haven't. And I'm guessing you haven't too. Guess what? We now have something additional to think about to thank Hashem for. When the body experiences illness, the temperature rises and the person develops a fever. This is the defense mechanism because, like anything else in the body, germs are damaged by the greater heat. But Hashem, in His kindness, makes the temperature rise only when the body needs it. This is only a small part of how we are cared for by Hashem in His kindness. As David Amelech says, how abundant are your works, Hashem, quoting from Psalm 104, verse 24. So it's another thing we can thank Hashem for, that when we get sick, our body temperature rises and we get a fever, and this is to combat the illness, whatever it is. So there's another thing to thank Hashem for. The blood that flows through the circulatory system is an amazing substance that comes into contact with every tissue of the body. It carries a river of nutrients to nourish every one of the body's 100 trillion cells. There are thousands of different nutrients in the blood, as different nutrients are needed for the hair than for the liver. Not only are these materials being transported by the blood, they are reworked while they are being carried along. So as the nutrients are carried along in the blood, they're basically compartmentalizing all the different nutrients to do their thing and go in their various ways. Some materials need to go through hundreds of stages until they are ready to be used by the organ for which they are destined. Imagine a delivery truck that transports wigs but contains a factory that creates hair while en route, or a bakery truck is baking a cake while en route to its customers. Not only is it baking the cake, it is grinding the wheat, mixing it with water and making flour. All that is being done in the blood, which is manufacturing materials as it's coursing through the body. So to do the job of allowing the nutrients to go to where they need to go, a manufacturing of sorts has to take place to make that process happen as it's traveling through the bloodstream. Miraculously, while thousands of nutrients are carried along in the blood, they don't interfere with each other. How could that be? We can't put two different medicines in one bottle because of the risk of an unexpected reaction. But in the blood, not only don't the thousands of nutrients interfere with each other, the blood brings each nutrient to the right place. Imagine a delivery man who has 10,000 addresses to which he has to make different deliveries. That would be like the blood, which is 10,000 delivery addresses, each requiring different combinations of nutrients. Have you ever thought about this stuff? I'm guessing no. But if you have, let me know. And if you have, has it been a spontaneous thought that you've had, or is it through perhaps some other rabbi? We don't really understand the value of what we're reading here, I don't think, and neither do I. But as you're reading it, you realize, whoa, I've been missing out on thanking Hashem for so many things. I say, thank you Hashem for my body. That's kind of where it ends. I've never bothered to delve into the intricacies of how the body works and how miraculous it is. I figured my science classes and my biology classes did that, but they didn't really tell me how miraculous it is. It was just all a foregone conclusion. If the wrong material is delivered to any address, for example, a calcium to the brain instead of the bones, the person could be vulnerable to a catastrophe, such as a stroke, heaven forbid. Not only that, the blood performs a garbage collection process, carrying away the used materials from the cells. Imagine the big pipe carrying milk from Manhattan to Brooklyn. At the same time, this pipe is carrying oil for our furnaces and additional oil for cooking. There are all kinds of needed liquids in the same pipe, but at the same time, the pipe is bringing garbage back out of Brooklyn. Although the garbage bilge water is mixed with the essential materials in the same pipe, one does not contaminate the other. That is insane. If you to think about that, that is really insane. That's a miracle of miracles. And it's happened to every single one of us who are alive. An analogous condition exists in the body which needs to get rid of the wastes. We don't get rid of waste only by elimination in the bowel movement. A great part of the waste is eliminated by the blood, so the blood carries all the spent materials in the same blood flow in which it carries all the essential life-giving materials. How all this happens is truly a miracle of miracles. While the blood is coursing through the body, it is at the same time getting ready for the possibility of accidents. In case of a skin cut, there is a danger that blood could pour out of a wound. To help deal with this eventuality, the blood contains a clotting agent called fibrinogen. Fibrinogen? There you go, that's my best go at that. This is a sticky substance that rushes from all parts of the body through the blood to the location of the cut. It immediately starts plugging the cut by causing the blood to coagulate. In time, the flesh starts coming back together and the cut is repaired as the nerves in the skin grow back together. Of course, blood should not have too much fibrinogen because that could cause internal blockage of the narrow blood vessels, some of which are no thicker than a hair. If those blood vessels are supplying a critical organ like the brain, that would be a stroke, heaven forbid. Since fibrinogen is so sticky, how does it pass through the blood? The answer is that it doesn't. The fibrinogen remains diluted and with the same consistency as the rest of the blood. When the system becomes aware that there is a cut someplace, the loose substance is transported to the vicinity of the wound, and only there does it become sticky. This is, people are like, oh, what's happening in Iran? It's Gog and Magog. Forget about it. What's happening in your body? What's happening in your body? People are they're all looking out. What's happening over there? What's happening with you? Then as it comes into contact with the air, it becomes hard and a scab is formed to close up the wound. Airplanes today are equipped with rubberized lining in their fuel tanks so that in case a bullet punctures a tank, it is automatically sealed and the fuel doesn't escape. But this is what Hashem did in a much more sophisticated way long ago. When there is a cut in the skin, the fibrinogen pours in, hardens and plugs it up. And so we have to appreciate another great chesed of Hashem. Now there are some people who are bleeders. They have an illness that prevents their blood from manufacturing fibrinogen. And so when they have a cut, they're in great danger. That's why a bris, like somebody who gets a Brit, cannot be performed on such people. But for normal people, when a cut occurs, the blood flow soon stops by itself. The Mahel doesn't need to put anything on the wound to stop the bleeding. He applies antiseptics to prevent contamination by foreign matter, and he bandages it up. So this is talking about a circumcision. Bandaging helps a little bit, but the wound really heals by itself because the blood rushes fibrinogen to the scene. These concepts are only the very basics of what the blood is about. Okay, the miracles of the blood could fill libraries. The miracles of the blood could fill entire libraries. And so when we see the blood, we say to Hashem, how abundant are your works, Hashem? And that's quoting from Psalm 104:24. Blood is so essential to human and animal life that the Torah states, for the blood, it is the life. Blood is truly a chesed Hashem. Life is maintained because of the miracles that take place in the blood. Appreciate your blood. When something happens to somebody who has been in an accident and needs blood transfusion, or if he suffers an illness to the blood, then the people begin to appreciate what blood is. Otherwise, they forget about it, rather. People are reminded of the role of their blood when something goes wrong and the blood starts manufacturing the wrong things. This happens only rarely, but it does happen. You should remember to be thankful to Hashem that your blood functions the way it should and is producing only what it's supposed to produce, but not the deadly materials that can appear when people have blood diseases. Hashem's kindness is always with us. So Jehovah's Witnesses who refuse people to get blood transfusions, and as a result, thousands of people have died needlessly over the centuries, or however long the Jehovah's Witnesses have been around, which is at least, they were around in the 40s. They were called Bible students, I think. So, maybe over the last half century, thousands of people have died that didn't have to die. And now I'm hearing that they're doing away with forbidding blood transfusions. So now that means everybody that died up until now in the Jehovah's Witness world died for nothing? Stay away from them. Stay away from them. You can't get them to leave your doorway quick enough. A person's muscles move his body by pulling the tendons, which are cords made of a tough fiber-like tissue that connect the muscles to the bones. To attach the rubbery tendons to the hard bones, Hashem made an intermediary bone-like material called cartilage. We cannot chew cartilage because it is too tough, but it's not quite as hard as bone. Cartilage is a miracle because without the cartilage, it would not be possible to attach something soft like muscles and tendons to something hard like bone. Some bones are connected to each other by ligaments, which are similar to tendons. A person's ligaments, tendons, and muscles work together to make his body move in complex ways that would require an elaborate set of mechanical levers, hoists, and winches, and it's all done smoothly in response to a person's will, but with him being completely unaware of the mechanical technology that he is employing. It's done so expeditiously and so perfectly because it has been designed and planned in a way that could not be equaled by the most ingenious of human engineers, including the fictitious Tony Stark. Everybody goes on about the Iron Man suit, even though it's a fictional thing. But maybe technology in real life is not far from that. It pales into insignificance compared to the technological marvel of the human body. So if they, end up constructing an elaborate exoskeleton that can fly and make a person shoot bullets and protect them in harsh environments, it pales into insignificance against the complexity and the marvel of the human body alone. Consider what is involved when a person lowers his jaw. It seems to use a small matter. It seems to us a simple matter. But when we study the action of the tendons that have to pull it down, we need to ask ourselves what force is actually pulling down the jaw. It becomes evident that there is a set of tendons like an arrangement of pulleys attached to various points of the skull that cause the jaw to go up and down. This and all the other movements of the body are accomplished in the most miraculous fashion. Even the slightest move of a finger requires an engineering skill that staggers the imagination. This is a very important subject and we cannot do justice to it in a few words, but for now, it is enough to know that all body movements involve great complexity and ingenious engineering. Unfortunately, a person appreciates this only when he has difficulties with it. So in watching this video, I'm hoping that your jaw is dropping, no pun intended there, a few times in this video, which is a good thing, and there's some size going on with how revelatory this is. And in doing so, this is causing you to show an appreciation for your body that most people only have on this level that you're having now when they have an accident. And so therefore, you have just avoided potentially the need for you in the future to sometimes have an accident in your body, because you're now showing that appreciation now by watching this video. So this video, by watching this video and having it freak you out at how amazing the body is and having a renewed appreciation for Hashem, could quite conceivably cause you now not to have an accident that was otherwise lined up for you sometime in the near or far future. So that's gone now. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because now you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, I didn't realize the jaw was that. You know, that guy that was going to punch you in the jaw and break your jaw in 3 weeks' time, you're not going to see him now. Potentially. And this is how you have to start to think. And you say, thank Hashem, thank you Hashem. Thank you Hashem. I'm so glad that you showed me this. I was once walking with a man from Maine who told me that his thigh was rotting away. What he meant was that his ligaments attached to his thigh, attaching his thigh to his pelvis, were rotting away. The thigh bone has to move inside a socket in the pelvis to assure that it will be held properly in place. It is connected to ligaments from the inside of the pelvis to the thigh bones. Because of the pliable ligaments, a person normally doesn't feel any discomfort as his thigh moves in the socket of his pelvis. But this man experienced what happens sometimes to people when their ligaments begin to deteriorate with age. Besides the pain of rubbing of the bone against bone, after a while the thigh bone and the pelvis actually fuse together. These bones are so coated with calcium that with nothing between them, they can lock together permanently, preventing movement of the leg. When you see what happens to others when things don't work right, you must appreciate the chesed of Hashem and thank Him throughout your life that your ligaments and your tendons are working perfectly, allowing you to move around every time you move and every time you walk. Miracles of cooperation are taking place between different bones by means of the intermediary materials that connect them. So like I've said before, if you see somebody who's got an ailment, Hashem is showing you, you're not appreciating me for your healthiness of that ailment that you're seeing in that person on the train. If that person is disfigured or struggles with some ability to walk, Hashem is talking to you in that moment and says, I want you to show me the gratitude for you being able to do what this person can't do. And of course, pray for that person perhaps, that they might be healed of whatever is ailing them, of course. But largely that is occurring for you to be reminded to be appreciative of your body or whatever body parts are the malady of the person you're seeing. The nerves are like wires that run throughout the entire body and are all interconnected to form the body's nervous system. The primary junction of the nervous system is in the brain, so that all sensations are relayed to the brain, which interprets them. Some sensations are pleasurable, whereas others are painful, and the brain assigns the appropriate meaning to each sensation. Rav Yisrael Salanter once said, why is it that when I bang my finger with a hammer, I experience intense pain? Why don't I have a feeling of great happiness and joy? He explained that Hashem planned the sensations for a purpose. When a hammer strikes a person's finger, he experiences intense pain to encourage him to be more careful in the future. Only those sensations that are for his benefit result in a pleasant report to the brain. So the idea is that you have the appropriate sensations for the preservation of the human body of its different parts and areas. We take these things for granted, but when we think about them, we realize how marvelous they are. In fact, the whole concept of pain is a miracle. Consider what happened if a person lacked the sensation of pain. A woman might be standing at a gas range and she stretches her hand over the stove, but she doesn't know that her hand is burning. She is talking to somebody while her hand is burning, but she doesn't pull it away until she smells the odor of burning flesh. Ugh. All of us who are blessed with a feeling of pain would react immediately by our nerves sending a message to our brain, and we could draw our hand away. And so pain is really a blessing. It is an indication that something is wrong, and it causes us to react to protect ourselves. Therefore, pain must be considered a gift from Hashem, no less than all the sensations of pleasure. Have you ever thought about that? Oh, I just want pleasure. Yeah, but if you don't have pain, you could be in a very serious situation. There are also many ingenious things about the way the nerves work together. It is remarkable that the nerves do not transmit all messages they get. If they did, the brain would be overwhelmed by too many signals, so the nerves only submit important messages to the brain and the relatively unimportant messages are left out. The brain has nerves in all the skin covering his entire body. That skin is in constant contact with his clothing, so that every minute that There are thousands of sensations, but the nerves are made in a form of linked nerve cells like chains that are separated by gaps called synapses. These gaps are designed so that only strong electronic pulses are able to pass through them. Thus, only important sensations are strong enough to skip over the synapses and proceed to the brain, where they can cause a mental reaction. The weak responses can get through, and the small unimportant sensations get lost en route to the brain. So that's why wearing clothes isn't painful. Most of the time. Sometimes, depending on the type of shorts you might wear, they might, cause a rash or something. But you can see what the author's getting at here. Among the thousands of functions that the nerves accomplish are to make us aware of our environment. We sense heat and cold. We sense when unwelcome objects like insects are touching us. We can feel their shape, their temperature, their movement, and their degree of hardness or softness. In addition, there are nerves that function without our knowledge. There are nerves that keep our lungs breathing. These nerves are connected to our brain, and the brain sends messages to the nerves directing the muscles in our lungs to continue pumping air, breathing in and out. All this goes on even when we are not aware of what's happening. Once we begin to study the subject of nerves, we quickly realize that libraries can be filled with books on that one subject alone. The veins, the arteries through which the blood flows are marvelous in themselves. We will mention just one detail out of thousands. As the blood courses through the blood vessels, it flows only in one direction. To prevent the blood from flowing backwards, all the blood vessels, no matter how thin they are equipped with valves that open in only one direction. As the blood is pushed by pumping action of the heart, a surge of blood goes through the valve. The valve then closes, so a reverse surge of blood is blocked by the closed valve. The same blood is constantly being recirculated through the entire body 24 hours a day. The bloodstream conveys all the nutrients that the body needs to give it energy and to create new cells to produce worn out cells. And so the bloodstream is in itself one of the greatest nisim, one of the greatest miracles in the whole of the universe. And we'll leave it there today. That takes us to page 196. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're not blown away by what I've shared in this video, check your pulse. Check your pulse. Let's get back to where it all began, and that was you. Because wherever you go, there you are. And rather than sort of keep looking outfield, how about you just look in the mirror every once in a while and thank Hashem for who you are. Anyway, until next time, bye for now.